Global War 36 enthusiast here with a post-game analysis video reviewing Operation Regimental Combat Team. First I'm going to just talk about a review of what happened in this game. So on turn 1, Germany sent the Condor Legion down to Spain, and that's a new ability or a new thing that Germany can do. Yeah, it is a special ability where they send a fighter down to Spain, and then once they win the Spanish Civil War, they can recall that fighter back to Germany. I think there's two ways to play Spain. You can either go for the bonus, where you get the blue division. This is what Germany could do in Spain. Two different ways Germany could go in Spain. Either go for the bonus where you try to take out Spain as fast as possible and then get a blue division every turn in Berlin, or you could try to get the strategic objective point, get the victory point. And that is, if you do it that way, then you want to do what Hambone did in this game, wait till the very end and then knock out the Spanish Republicans, and you've got a nice big fat army to hold on to Madrid. So I think if you're going to do Condor Legion, I'd probably, if I would go for the fast win. It might mean that you send the Condor Legion with the Germans, then you send a fighter with Italy. That might be something that you do, but you try to just take the Spanish Republicans out as fast as possible. Then you get the fighter back. Otherwise, you've lost a fighter with Germany that is loaned to the Spanish nationalists, and you have to pay 5 to do it. Might as well pay 10 and just send it to the Spanish. Anyway, over here in China, CCP just was on a tear. They succeeded in aligning on turns 1. CCP spread influence to the Beiping warlord, and then turn 2, CCP aligned the Suyan warlord. But unfortunately for the Russians, even though they were on fire here with the CCP, their first peacetime income increase roll was a 2 for the Russians, so that's never good. No, that's not true. They rolled a 3. They rolled a 3 for their peacetime income increase. On turn 2, Japan didn't buy any Marines. Generally, I think you probably want to buy, you only can buy 2 Marines per turn. So Japan didn't have as many Marines as they might have otherwise. Then on turn 3, CCP succeeded a 3rd time in a row with Singhai. So, I mean, just a dream opening for CCP. I think that at that point, Japan declared war, and I think that was the right thing to do. If CCP is gaining that much momentum, you really want to stop them from spreading further. And so Sarge Shellhole declared war on China, and Xinjiang and Xikang both aligned to CCP, but the other territories went to the KMT. Tibet went to KMT, and then, of course, the territories down here went to KMT. On turn 4, Russia tragically rolled a 1 for peacetime income increase, so they only had 4 combined on their first 2 rolls. And there was this international submarine conference that was occurring early in the game that we were laughing about. I think it was down here in I-4. All these subs were gathering for some reason. Japan had the conference there, and Britain was there, France was there, Italy was there. Germany didn't attend because they didn't want other nations to learn all the advances they were making in submarine technology. Classically, on turn 7, Hambone declared war with Germany on France, the Commonwealth, Belgium, Switzerland, and Poland. Interestingly, Hambone only attacked West Poland that turn. He didn't go into Warsaw, and I wonder if that Condor Legion fighter was a factor. That allowed the British to pull that Polish fighter out to escape to a carrier that was a light carrier, an A-23. In the campaign, Germany lost 51 IPP in units. It's interesting, the game prior to this, I was the French and I tried to just go all out defense. I didn't send anything to other countries, and I just built maximum defensive capacity. And I think Lady Luck was favoring the Germans, and they only lost 30 IPP of units. And then this game, I had the French fighter go on map, and I think I lend-leased 2 AA guns to KMT, or I think I lend-leased about 8 IPP out, but I did way more damage just because I got lucky. Switzerland put up a particularly good fight, and Hambone got diced in Switzerland, but so he had to change his moves midstream. This is where a player's skill really shines. I have to tip my hat to Panzer J and Hambone as being the players that can just on a dime change up their plans. That's where you really see someone's mettle. I admire that a lot because that's a weakness for me. I need to plan and think about things and write out my moves. I am not good at adapting on the fly. So Great Britain began to get convoy raided. Hambone pretty consistently, he did, I think he felt disappointed with how much damage he was doing and wanted to do more. I think I described it as he was doing devastating damage, but not lethal levels of damage. But it's turn 7 just began what was going to be a long campaign of bleeding by the Commonwealth due to convoy raiding. On turn 8, the poor Soviets rolled a second 1. So they got a 3 on their first roll and then 2 1s. And that 1 that the Soviets rolled, remember that's a D12. And they only got 1 tech success. Japan over here was, Sergeant Shellhole was purchasing medium armor. He bought 4 medium armor, and he moved the majority of his fleet down here to I-12. And this was an interesting location. Even though he doesn't have a major port to jump off with the surprise strike, he can hit Calcutta, or he could hit Suez or Lower Egypt. So that was a really menacing position for him to have. On turn 10, the Soviets reached an income of 45. So you can see they're off to a terrible start with their income increases, and then they start rolling really well and get to 45, 1 shy of 46, which would be full production for the Soviets. That's the worst way for it to go with Russia's peacetime income increases. If you're not going to roll evenly, you want to roll your great rolls up front where you get to collect for several turns. You don't want to roll them right at the very end. And getting to 45, this was a key moment on turn 10 where the Soviets hit 45. I think this was either a mistake on Silk's part, or it was absolutely brilliant diplomacy on Hambone's part, because Hambone had not signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop, but apparently he reached out to Silk and said, hey, I'm interested in signing the Molotov-Ribbentrop. Now, when you're the Soviet Union and you're at 45 income, the German player knows that you're going to hit 46 the next turn, and he's probably thinking, I'm going to declare war so that I can use Operation Barbarossa, that German special ability. But I think that Silk was hoping that he could collect. He had about high 80s IPP, I believe. I can't remember exactly how many he has. Maybe I wrote it down somewhere here, but I think he had the high 80s for his IPP, and he was hoping to Hambone would let him save another turn at 40-something income, and he would get into 120s. That's huge. That's really good. If you can make it to 120 with the Soviets for your big buy, that's a lot of units you can put out. So I think Hambone probably gave Silk the rope-a-dope saying, "Hey, I want to sign Molotov-Ribbentrop. I'll be interested to hear from Hambone and Silk about what really happened behind the scenes there," because Silk did not declare war during the combat movement phase of turn 10, which is what I would have done. I would have declared war. I would have scorched earth everything. I would have railed out the two minor factories from Smolensk and Kyiv. And the most important thing about why you want to declare war in that situation is deny Germany Operation Barbarossa. But that isn't what happened. So Germany signed the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact with the Soviet Union, and then on turn 11 declared war on the Soviet Union using Operation Barbarossa. So what happened there was the Soviet Union did have fighters in Leningrad, and Germany, I believe, had developed long-range aircraft and could fly. Yeah, they did have long-range aircraft at that point, so they could fly over to hit Leningrad. If Operation Barbarossa wasn't in effect, then probably Hambone wouldn't have gone to bomb Leningrad, because he wouldn't have had the +1 and the Russian planes wouldn't have had a -1. But because he had Operation Barbarossa, that enabled him to bomb that factory there in Leningrad. Another key thing that happened with Germany on turn 11 is Hambone took both southern Belarusia and eastern Ukraine. He took southern Belarusia with a light armor, and he took eastern Ukraine just dropping a single airborne infantry there. And what this did was, because of Operation Barbarossa, Silk could only choose to attack one of them. I believe he took out the light armor here. But that left a landing spot next to Orel-Kursk, which was just enough range for the German fighters to hit Orel-Kursk or escort the bombers that were hitting Orel-Kursk and land in eastern Ukraine. If Silk had declared war when he hit 45, then he could have taken out both of those low defensive value units, and Hambone could not have bombed Orel-Kursk if he had tried to bomb it, he wouldn't have had any fighters to escort. And Silk could have moved his fighters there to Orel-Kursk, and he would have prevented that factory from getting bombed. So it's just, if you have a chance to avoid Germany getting Operation Barbarossa, you've got to do it. People do not know how incredibly powerful that special ability is, but it is a game changer. And I think losing those factories. Oh, another thing about Operation Barbarossa, Hambone also took out Kyiv or surrounded Kyiv, I think it was, and so that made Silk have to destroy that light factory or the minor factory in Kyiv. So just think about that. The decision not to declare war got this factory bombed, got this factory bombed, got this factory eliminated, made it so that this factory didn't get moved, and it eventually got bombed. And the whole Russian campaign from that point forward, it was just devastating. And the sad thing is that Silk was probably deciding not to declare war, hoping that he would get to do 120 big buy, but Hambone still declared war on him, and so he didn't even get any extra IPP to spend out of doing that. So I think that completely defined the entire there are two things that define the Russian campaign. I'm going to say three things. Okay, first thing that defined the Russian campaign was Silk made a serious commitment to Lend-Lease to CCP. And CCP was going to evolve here. They were going to get to their 13. They have 3 medium armor, they got 3 AA guns, they got 4 artillery. So CCP was helped by their big brother, the Soviet Union, a lot. And that did help them get a point. But at what cost? It made it so that the Soviet Union didn't have as much money. And the first thing is how much was Lend-Lease to CCP. The second thing is how poor the Soviet Union's income rolls were. So if you're playing the Soviet Union and you have really poor income rolls, I would recommend foregoing a heavy Lend-Lease program to the CCP. You have to change. It's hard to be the Soviet Union. You you don't necessarily get to decide how the game is going to play out. You have to adapt your play based on things like your income roll. And if you don't have the income, you can't afford sending to CCP, because your primary thing I think should be this front. But that's just my opinion about how I play Russia. I don't know. So one factor was how much was sent to CCP. One factor was how little the Soviet Union's income was. And the last factor that determined how Russia played out this game, I think, was that decision on turn 10 not to declare war. So, okay. Then the U.S. was at, when Germany declared war on Russia, that brought USA to 60 income. So they were at 55 income at that point, and Germany declaring war on Russia gives them 5 more income. And at that moment, the Commonwealth immediately declared war on Japan. So we were 3 away from reaching wartime economy, or USA was 3 away from reaching wartime economy, and I wanted to strip Japan's surprise attack. And I think that really hurt Japan to not have their surprise attack. They did use it, I think, maybe on the Philippines, but they didn't get a chance to use it on something really good. So let's see. Oh, there's one other thing I want to talk about. Poor Silk. It was so rough. He tried to rapid build. He had improved construction. He tried to rapid build a fortification here, and he repaired damage on a damaged factory. And then Hambone just bombed it again and flanked. And Silk had to withdraw his forces and basically left Oral-Kursk with that fortification empty. That really hurt. There was another really cool thing that Hambone was doing, which is to strategic rail move within Russia along these rail lines through the Pripyat marshes. This is my lesson learned, my personal lesson learned of this game. Whenever I'm Russia, I'm going to scorched earth that rail, which I have never done before. But having seen the evil that Hambone could perpetrate with that rail line, I don't see why Russia's going to need to send any rail here or there. This is a rail that only the Germans are going to use. That rail is going to get scorched in every game that I play. Okay, so let's see. What happened with... let's see. What happened here is Japan attacked, took out Aden, took southern India, took a whole bunch of places, Sarawak, Hong Kong. No, maybe not Hong Kong. I don't think Hong Kong. But I think one mistake that was made was those medium armor that Sergeant Shellhole had purchased. He put a little force here in southern India next to my giant army. The Commonwealth had made a real commitment to protecting Calcutta, had a fortification there, had a lot of Gurkhas, a little bit of artillery, and the Japanese put a little force here with their high-value medium armor, and the FEC just destroyed them. If those units had been in Maharashtra, then I think they would have been safer. I didn't have any range 2 things. I don't even think I had any motorized infantry. Certainly not enough to come out and hit this force. So that was one thing. There was, let's see. There were 2 little Japanese task force after his turn. So I killed these 2 little task force that had gone to various places to take over things with Japan, and then I destroyed those forces in southern India. There was a naval transport that, let's see, I think it was Japanese transport in P2 that he had sent up here. Right up here there was a transport. I don't know if he was taken over. Japan declared war on Russia and took over maybe Amur here. But one thing you need to know about Boston Bruce, if you have a lone transport somewhere, he starts salivating, and he sent a destroyer and killed that lone transport. So it's just funny how you start, after you've been playing with people for a certain amount of time, you know their play style. And Boston Bruce, what Hambone really loves is to bomb your Navy in port and pin a bunch of ships that can't escape. That's what is his catnip. And Boston Bruce's catnip is killing lone transports. My catnip is getting to buy militia. I love to buy militia. All right, so turn 13. Okay, so I'm starting to move, as the Commonwealth, I'm starting to move my units out. Now that this force is destroyed, turn 12, I move back here. Turn 13, I think turn 14, I just start moving down towards British Malaya. And when I attacked from Bengal into Burma, there were 2 fighters in Siam that could choose to scramble. This was a very even battle that occurred. It was, amazingly, it was 47 pips to 47 pips in this battle of Burma after Japan scrambled the 2 fighters. I got lucky in that battle because I was figuring I would lose 1 fighter, that with him having 2 fighters, I would lose one of them, or I'd lose my fighter. But he missed with both of his fighters. So I was lucky that way, but then I was super unlucky because he rolled for 6 infantry and he got 4 hits. That killed 2 more Gurkhas than I expected. So basically, instead of losing a fighter at 10, I lost 2 extra Gurkhas at 8. Italy came into the war on turn 13 with terrible luck. They came out. Hambone decided that, it's hard to know what you should do with Italy. And Hambone thought, you know what, I'm going to bring Italy in, and I'm going to bring my forces up here out of the Med, kill global war enthusiasts, kill my task force with a light carrier that was, basically projecting a force field around and covering a large number of convoy lines. So he took that out with the Italians, but he got really unlucky. And I think that's something that Bruce and I have to realize is we got a little bit lucky this game. Like the fighter not getting, the Burma thing turned out to be even. But on that battle in A27, where the Italians were attacking, they really got terrible luck. They lost a heavy cruiser because I got a target selection hit, and I was able to choose that heavy cruiser. They lost 2 ships up in Sea Zone A18, and that was key because Hambone brought 4 ships to kill 1 Anzac destroyer here. He didn't get any hits on the first round, and the Anzac destroyer hit twice in 2 rounds and knocked his little Italian task force from 4 ships down to 2 ships. Whereas if he had 3 ships, he could have blockaded. I think this was a clever move, Hambone, to have a little Italian force, especially when you've completely wiped me out of the North Atlantic, to have 3 Italian ships, which is what you had planned for and what really should have happened with normal luck. You would have had this nice little useful task force that could blockade, and when Boston Bruce would have a naval transport in port in, say, New York, if Hambone had put these 3 ships there, that would have prevented that naval transport from coming out. But since it was 2, they really didn't do anything. That was just poor luck. I feel kind of guilty about that Italian Navy because that was really just dicage there. So another awesome moment was Hambone decided to convoy raid in A44, and I think Boston Bruce had, I can't remember if he had 3 ships or 3 aircraft that it could go on map and 3 destroyers that could hit, but four submarines were wiped out. So no one killed more subs than in one turn than Boston Bruce on that turn. That was wonderful. That was turn 13. On turn 14, the FEC attacked. I think that was when I went into Siam, maybe. That's where I had 23 units versus 9 defending units. So I just wiped them out. They had a fortification, but it still wasn't, there was nothing that Japan could do against that big stack of the troops that came from Calcutta. There was a really clever attack by Hambone. Boston Bruce we had a seaplane base here in Sierra Leone, and Boston Bruce had an American seaplane. Hambone had a medium bomber somewhere up here. the Italian medium bomber, and it flew down and hit Sierra Leone. So officially right now in version 4.2, a seaplane like that doesn't have any units in it doesn't die unless you capture the territory. It dies if something takes that. But that didn't seem right. We reached out to Morton, and he is going to change that for 4.3, and a seaplane is going to get killed in a scenario like that. So let me see exactly what it says. Let me see here. Sorry about this. Okay, in version 4.3, seaplanes will be treated like aircraft that elect not to participate in combat. Instead of requiring the attacking player to capture a land zone to kill a seaplane, all that the attacking player needs to do is have a surviving attacking unit. So that way the lone medium bomber would destroy a lone seaplane. So I think that's a really good rule. It intuitively makes sense. So that was the rule change that came from RCT. So on turn 14, USA got heavy battleships, and Boston Bruce laid down 5 heavy battleships all at once. Felt like the tide is turning. On turn 15, because Hambone had been able to have tremendous economy of force with his campaign in the Soviet Union, he really didn't lose much. He lost a medium bomber or two to inherent anti-aircraft. He developed heavy strategic bombers, so the inherent anti-aircraft dropped down to just 1. It only hit on a 1. He just bombed the Soviet Union factory capacity into the Stone Age. It was a really effective, inexpensive campaign, so that left him with a lot of his forces intact. He was very prudent. He backed away from the large stack of Russian militia and infantry. So Silk couldn't really engage him. And because he was spending so little, losing so little money in the Soviet Union, it enabled him to spend a lot of money applying pressure to Great Britain. Really good strategy. He had like about 10 fighters. Here he had a heavy strategic bomber, 2 strategic bombers, 2 air transports, lots of airborne. He had 2 battleships, 2 naval transports. I think that at one point Hambone came up to A3 and took over Iceland and Greenland so that he could fly from Normandy with a heavy strategic bomber or just a regular strategic bomber and drop off an airborne in Ottawa and still land. Basically, the long and short of it is Hambone put tremendous pressure on London, like existential pressure. You know, if I hadn't been careful, we could have lost London. And poor Bruce, he's really trying to put the screws to Sarge a shell hole here in Japan and commit a lot of money to the Pacific. And then his ally is doing a horrible job as far as subs. And Hambone's doing a brilliant job of applying pressure to England. So Boston Bruce and I had a lot of arguments. I absolutely love playing with Boston Bruce. He and I are a really good fit for each other because I'm super cautious, cowardly, and Boston Bruce is audacious. And a lot of times it's Boston Bruce who's the creative person in our team, comes up with a really good strategy, and I'm the editor who finds little ways to improve his brilliant idea and, you know, slightly amend it for the better. So boy, are we a good combo together. It's always a joy to be on Bruce's team. But I know that this was frustrating for him, that so many IPP were tied up in fighters and jets and planes on map. Hambone did a great job he was committed to subs all the way to the end of the game. And that forced us to respond this way. I mean, I think the outcome proves that we made the right decision, and it was only through our mutual struggles together that we would find the best path to take. But boy, Hambone, you really did a great job there. Okay, I just want to talk about the Calcutta situation. So here in Calcutta, right now I have 24 units in Calcutta in a fortification in an unsurrounded city. And let's count up how many Silk has. He has 2 here, he has 5 here, so that's 7. He's got another 7 artillery, that's 14, and he's got 10 more here, so that's 24. So we got 24 to 24. Now these guys are 2 turns away from coming in, and so I would get 2 more turns. In 2 turns, I could bring over 4 more units, so that'd get me up to 28, and I could build another, say, 7 more units over the course of 2 turns. If we really were in trouble, we could bring American land units to Calcutta. But mostly I have infantry in a fortification. He has all vehicle units going into a city. And in version 4.2, vehicles going into an unsurrounded city are at -2. So he would have had 24 units -2. That's 48 pips that he doesn't get to count. You know, most of these guys are 2s. However many advanced mechs he has are 2s. All his cavalry are only 1s. His tanks are great because he's got 8 tanks that are at 4, even with the -2. But the problem is all my target selections, all my units, if I roll 1s, I'm going to be taking off T-34s, and I've got 2 tank destroyers that are going to be taking off T-34s. So I'm probably taking off 1 or 2 T-34s every turn. I was not worried that Calcutta would fall. So that, I think that what would have had to happen is Russia would have been forced to build medium bombers to take out these naval facilities. America could bring fighters. Britain could have, now that the campaign over here is won, Britain could bring fighters over. And I think that I really don't think that the Soviet Union was going to be able to take Calcutta for maybe 3 or 4 turns. So that's what my thoughts are about the Calcutta situation. So just reviewing, absolutely love Boss and Bruce. Like, I have a lot of anxiety, and I would wake up at like 5:30 in the morning and come down and look at my game board and be like, oh my God, Hambone can come for me. You know, I have to bring my Navy back to A21. There were multiple times that I was having massive anxiety, and Boss and Bruce, he didn't want to spend so much, but he's a good guy, and he sent me plane after plane after plane after plane. And also he's a very kind person. You hear his growly voice and you think he's a bear, but really he's a teddy bear. And I just love playing with Boss and Bruce. It was an absolute joy, a lot of fun. Hambone, player of the game, without a doubt, absolutely brilliant plays. And Hambone sets himself up to be able to threaten multiple different places. You know, by being in Normandy, he was threatening Ottawa. He was threatening London. He can fly over a controlled minor and hit Gibraltar. He tied up so many forces. You know, Bruce was talking about how he had to keep his Navy down here in the Med. He couldn't bring it over to the Pacific. There were so many turns that Bruce was wanting to bring his fleet over to Sumatra, his Med fleet over to Sumatra. But again, we had to defend ourselves from the German threat. The way that he conducted the war in Russia to do that much damage and be that successful so that Bessarabia is still held on turn 18. And I mean, it's not even threatened. It's not going to fall. Really, he set a marker for how to play Germany, how you can play Germany to do damage to Russia, but not really spend not very much money in Russia, and then use that extra money that you saved to just convoy the hell out of Great Britain. Another thing I want to compliment Hambone for was his fantastic use of the battlecruiser. He used it in the early part of the game. He sent it all the way over here to Anzac and used it to deny Anzac's wartime income bonus and to convoy raid there. And it's really hard when a battle cruiser's on raiding status, for you to track it down, it can just slip away. So it wasn't like I could just chase him with 1 or 2 ships. I would have needed to send a light carrier down there. I think this is a good thing for future German players to think about, a battle cruiser, in this area, because the Commonwealth doesn't want to bring a light carrier to this area to hunt him down. Eventually I had a medium bomber, because that'd be on map, and a sub. That was a good little combo, but it takes a long time for Anzac to have that kind of a force. So, but then once I did have that, he scooted over here down around the tip of South America and came over and convoy raided over here. So really good use of that battle cruiser. Great. He really messed us up in North Africa, because when he killed all the American units, all these transports became worthless. Such a good player, Hambone. I really, really tip my hat to you. Just that, signing the Molotov Ribbentrop when you didn't intend to actually follow through on it, just so awesome. Let's see, Sarge's shell hole. I really thought he did the right thing to go into China on turn 3, even though he wasn't fully prepared to do so. There was an attack into Quang Tung in the late game. He got diced there, but I just don't know. I think in the late game, you got to be looking at victory points. Quang Tung is not in any way a victory point. Shenxi wasn't a victory point. So I'm not sure about those decisions. And I think overall, my feeling was probably too many land units and not enough naval units, particularly Big Blue. I think Japan probably should have purchased more capital ships to prevent Boss and Bruce from getting Big Blue, because the Axis should definitely on turn 17, the Axis should probably have the lead and be able to try to hope the game ends and that they win on turn 17. And then the middle turns, maybe turn 17 and 18, if the game ends, typically the Axis should be winning. Turn maybe 18, 19, or 20, maybe the common turn hypothetically could see a window where they might win, and then after turn 20, you give the Allies enough time, they should be winning. So that's my thoughts about the game. Sorry to go so long. Just, it was a really, really good game. Great group of people. Our next game will be 20 core, and I'll tear down my board, set everything up, and then I'll do an introduction to 20 core, which should be starting, I hope, this weekend.